Okay, call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tony, would you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Commissioner Dippel,
Here.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no appearances or acknowledgements, is there anything one wants removed or discussed on the consent calendar?
Two adjustments to the personnel items. One for Ryan Work was off a penny. And the one for Dustin Jung didn't have the update for the 3% increase, so they're not just basic numbers on there.
We have a motion as amended.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under old business, discuss and possible action related to the DSU request for a contribution to the athletic facilities construction. Jameson, would you want to-
I don't have anything new. I'll just refresh everyone's memory. So it was a month and a half ago now that John from the foundation came and presented a request for contribution to DSU's athletic facility. At that time, we had some preliminary discussion, but we said we'd hold off for a month to receive public input and allow our elected officials some time to discuss with their constituents. So that time has passed, and now we invited John and his crew back to, I guess, discuss further and allow the commission to decide what their next steps would be. John, you want to come on up?
Yeah.
To the hot seat.
Come with the Jeff.
I don't know if there's any particular questions from the commission to start with, but I guess the question I'd have is a big component of this is going to be what does the community receive in return for this contribution? What kind of access do they have to facilities? Maybe that'd be a good point to start.
Yeah, and I'll let Jeff talk in detail just about some things that he has in mind operationally, and I know he's had some conversations with some of the Legion group and other things like that. But I think holistically, the whole idea, the whole concept of this approach with these facilities has been very much in collaboration, both with the school district and with the community. And so the whole idea here is to make DSU and the Madison community a year-round destination and hopefully bring in youth events and tournaments, things like that year-round. And we think the addition of these facilities and continue to add things like turf that require much less maintenance throughout the year will benefit us all. And so that's really a big idea and concept behind the whole thing. That's really been our approach from day one. We have done some research just on how have other cities and universities done these partnerships. And what we found is and maybe it's just, one of the great things about living in South Dakota. It's always, everything is written in a binding contract under the understanding that all the parties are going to work together, under the understanding more or less that there is an agreement here that the city is going to have access. And so some just say there's a general understanding, some specify a certain amount of days. The most detailed one we found was with Brookings and SDSU as it pertained to their, I want to make sure I say the certain facility right, because they have several there, but their Performing Arts Center, they had something that specified they would have access to a minimum of 50 days per year to that one facility, and 10 of those days would be free of rent, right? So you wouldn't be charging the fee there. So So I know Jeff has a lot of ideas with that. I think Jeff has done a really good job over the years working with different community partnerships and having access to the DSU facilities. We intend to carry that. I'm actually taking over Madison Youth Soccer. So I'll be trying to figure out ways to, utilize these facilities once they're up and running as well. But Jeff, I think if you can add some different ideas that you talked about, but I think the biggest thing is there's no one set way that we've found. It's just, there's a lot of different ways. It's just kind of a general understanding, and we can do a lot of different things in writing to make everybody comfortable.
And as my conversations with different people in the community have went through, we very much, and the word collaborate is the word that we want to use, is the idea that we want to help host multiple events. We want it to be soccer, softball, baseball, youth football, high school events, and so forth. But as we get into those in particular, say softball and baseball with the new fields, what we would propose is that we would work together to bring in VFW tournaments, youth tournaments, and so forth. We would provide the facilities free of rent for those events. We would keep the concessions as part of our keeping with it, and then we would come up with a plan of how to split the entry fees and the gate for those events. We would provide workers for the event. We would provide maintenance and care of the facilities, clean up at the end of the day, all of that kind of stuff. And then we would use our athletes as umpires and officials and so forth, and help reduce the costs to both organizations and increase the net for it. In my conversations with one person in particular with the VFW, they wanted to provide at least a couple of tournaments where they could bring in money and enhance their youth baseball program. And he was really excited about sharing the gate, sharing the registration fees and so forth. And then again, with the idea that we would run at least a couple of those tournaments in the summer. So that's, again, splitting things. I don't have a set number. I think some things require a lot of workers for, some things require a lot less workers for. So that split in the gate and the entry fees changes based on how many workers we provide. But I would say the biggest thing is whoever is putting those on does not have to go out and find the manpower and go out and find volunteers to help work at the event, which is, if you've ran many youth tournaments, you know that wears out really quick. Going back a few years when we had the youth basketball tournament at Christmas time, I think Coach Ricky, that was his biggest headache of the year, was trying to figure out how to find officials for those tournaments year after year after year, when more and more people quit helping. So that would be our big piece to the collaborative effort.
Comments that I've had was, could we put off making a decision till we get into budget time? Because then we get a chance as a city and that, to kind of look at our budget. And I like some of the thoughts and that you have here. I'd like to see a little bit of that more in writing, just, what you've seen and necessary and maybe how it could benefit Madison.
I would agree with Roy on the writing piece. I mean, if we do this in a 10-year set, let's say, I'm probably not going to be in this chair. So if we're going to bind a commission down the road, it'd be nice to have some things in writing that kind of trail with the money as well.
What's the time frame budgetarily when?
Well, typically, we usually start a budget this time and that usually have it put together toward the end of October. But I'm not so certain that hasn't changed in the last couple
The
of years.
first reading has to be on or before the first meeting in November. We would look to probably do that in October.
Yeah.
So that it's ready to model the ordinance.
And so, the concerns in that were shared with me and that were, with the storms that we've had and all the other expenses that we've had, and that how's it going to fit in the budget, and especially if we're going to fit it in the budget long term.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, and that I don't have an answer for that.
So is it, then what you're requesting is just something a little bit more to what we would be proposing as far as guaranteed access and how we would propose to
I
split
think
revenue
so,
and
yes,
things like
because
that?
that helps a lot in,
Yeah.
in justifying any expenditure.
Yep. Understood.
Do you have somebody in particular you want me to sit down with and we start putting a
Not particular.
prospect piece together for it, or?
No, I don't have anybody particular in mind. I'm not sure if anyone else.
I think we're just looking for ideas or options.
Yeah.
And, you know, what are the possibilities?
I think that's what I was kind of thinking and hoping we would get more from a lot of the agreements than we got, right? It was somewhat startling, interesting, whatever you want to call it. You know, every city has one of these agreements with their institution, so you would think there'd be some outline things, and even SDSU in Brookings, the only one of their facilities actually specified everything else was more vague with some of the other ones, but we can talk to them because they're in these facilities, right? So what has it meant? As far as, you know, so that general understanding typically year over year, what does that look like then? And how has that understanding become more solid, you know, just in what that means? Because
Well, and
it
I,
certainly doesn't mean unlimited access, obviously.
and I think a number of people in that, you know, have seen the pictures, but are still not certain what all is going to really be there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's one thing to look at a picture from an understanding standpoint and know that this is here, this is here, this is here. And it's another look, as in looking at the picture on the back wall back there. We see a nice big building, but until someone sits down with you and really says, these are the things that are inside, these are the things that are gonna be offered, I think that there's, you know, makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Having something, you know, that's laid out more in concrete and black and white, I think is gonna make it a lot easier for us to make a decision and also us to say to the public, here's why we did this.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think part of the, and this is part of the cat and mouse game we're playing a little bit right now is, you know, we know what we're building right now, and we'll put all of this together, but what is guaranteed going up right now is the football stadium, the track and soccer complex goes first. So that's, if you've all been up there, and if you haven't, you should, it's kind of fun to see. But the track and soccer complex is going now, and that's on schedule to be open in the spring. So that'll open up turf and a track under the same kind of understanding and rules as the current one. You know, the community will have access to that track and other things like that. Certainly our partnership with the school district will take place starting this spring with events out there. But that'll introduce the first turf in Madison, the first artificial turf to the community, which will be exciting. And then they'll come in after football season at some point, depending on weather and all of that, and go to work on the football stadium. But the plan then is to play football where we're currently at this fall, and then next fall, so fall of 23, play football on the soccer field, the new soccer field, and then be ready to go in fall of 24 in the new football stadium and event center. So that's the chunk that's going in this phase. And part of, I think, our call to the city, in particular, we think a lot of the turf, it would be of interest to the city just because it adds so much to us and our ability for baseball, softball, and youth sports is getting baseball and softball done in this run. And I think given the, you know, the economic climate and just where prices are going, and we're experiencing this on a day-to-day basis, as we all are, whether we're buying groceries or building facilities. You know, we just don't know how far we're going to be able to take this. So we're trying to get as much as we can get done in this first phase. So I think the city can feel confident that what they would be investing in is for us to try to get baseball and softball done. And that would be all turf as well in this initial build, right? In case we aren't able to get to a phase 2, phase 3 for 3-5 years down the road. So that's a big part of our push right now, is to get that done.
No, very good.
So,
And I have been up there and I have been out in the field, that if you haven't seen it, definitely drive by. It's amazing to see the amount of work that's already been done.
Seeing is believing. It helps a little bit.
It does.
That's for
Yes,
sure.
Yes, it does. So,
I had a question, John. I know in your slideshow, there was an economic impact study, and I know part of that revolved around that big track meet that would maybe potentially be here, but what else is actually in that study? And is that something that you'd be willing to share with us or?
Yeah, well, that was a economic impact study sanctioned by the NAI just for that event.
Oh, okay.
And so that was more or less just an example of, I mean, that's a big event, but economically, it's not huge, right? I mean, to Brookings, but something like that, I mean, that would be equivalent to a supercharged high school track meet in high school, just as far as attendance. I mean, you're talking about not tens of thousands of people, right? You're talking about a few thousand people that are coming in from out of town. And so those are the different kinds of things that we can do. And, that talks about building the indoor like they have in Brookings is that one in particular. But there's another economic impact study in that presentation we showed last time that talks about, the overall economic impact of the institutions and their communities and other things like that. And there's some talk about, things like athletics and facilities and how they help kind of charge those communities as well. But those are the ones that point to the universities or the overall economic impact ones are more holistic on the economic impact of the universities and their communities, and then the entirety of the state as well. So.
I don't know, I haven't heard any negative feedback. It's all been, favorable responses on this. What do we call it? Cooperative partnership, I guess.
Yeah.
Everybody's excited.
Good.
I haven't heard anything bad.
I'll echo that as well. I've not received one phone call, one email, not negative whatsoever. And I think if we look at the long range of this, the economic impact in this community will be outstanding.
Yeah.
Will obviously generate an increase in sales tax revenue and things like that. So to me, it's a great investment the way I look at it.
Yeah. Good, appreciate that.
And the comments that I have are the same ones I had 6 years ago. Where are we with their streets and that, and
Yeah.
how's it gonna impact the budget and, so.
Yeah.
That's the kind of comments that I've had.
Yeah.
I haven't had anything said negative.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
just wondering, where's it gonna go? How's it gonna be spent? What's the advantage to the city? How is the city gonna be a part of it? And what are you gonna do in our streets?
Yeah.
So.
Understood.
Jameson, do you hear anything? Have you heard anything?
Nobody has spoken to me on this matter since it was presented a month and a half ago, so I can't say good, bad, or otherwise. And that's fine with me. I think that you five are the ones that really should be the ones leading the conversation, engaging with your constituents in this matter.
I'll add this, interestingly enough, people who come and talk to me lately are the people who are hauling their kids down to Sioux Falls to be in
Understood.
the Pentagon and be in the field house and being those youth situations, and they are really looking forward to us building a facility that they don't have to take their kids down there all the time. And I guess I was a little unaware of how many people transport their kids twice a week down there for practices, and then every weekend to play in a tournament and so forth. So that's just another piece of it, is that there's youth sports are not. And if anything, we're finding more and more sports that they can play. And esports is the prime example of that. There's just, and if you look at the lacrosse studies, the development of the lacrosse programs in the Midwest is really blowing up in Minnesota and Iowa in particular. And there are 2 conferences right now that are in a 5-year study as to when they will add lacrosse to their sports programs. So these fields all have lacrosse opportunities as well. So when that program starts developing, we'll be able to handle that as well. So it's, like I said, youth sports are not going away. They're just getting bigger.
And if you had the opportunity to be at the VFW 10 and under championship this weekend, and that, there were a lot of people there.
Refresh my memory, are there additional indoor courts in this, in any of the phases?
In the indoor track and training facility is a 100-yard long football field. It's 80 yards of field with two 10-yard end zones in it. And in that, depending on the youth or the age of the group, you can put 2 softball games going on from diagonal corners. We were discussing the other day at what age baseball can't do that any longer, but if when you have the whole project done, you've got a baseball, softball field, you've got a football field with 2 fields that you could play softball and baseball on. You've got an indoor track and training facility you could play 2 fields on. You got the multi-purpose field that you could play 2 on. So theoretically, you could have 7 baseball or 7 softball diamonds and multiple youth football where they play across, and it's kind of limitless for how creative you can be with creating new fields, and they're all turf. So
That's something I'd like, if we could look at that a little bit, because I know that downtown City Armory is just packed every night. Just another opportunity for some of these teams just to have access to practice out of the elements. So,
Well, yeah, turf's a little bit better than
right.
a basketball court for any sport but basketball, obviously, but I know the Armory gets used for
That
a
is
lot.
all day, every day. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's crazy.
packed, so.
Yeah, we moved a couple of our soccer practices in there last fall, so. Yeah. So, and I think that was part of, as Jeff and President Griffiths were planning and prioritizing, moving the indoor ahead of the basketball arena, which is somewhat unconventional, I think, to most, and it was to me, even at first, I kind of challenged that a little bit. But when you start to unpack that, it makes a lot of sense, because it's the idea of bringing something to the community that doesn't have. I mean, DSU has a gym that needs help, that would be an understatement. But they have one. Madison High School has one that dwarfs DSU's, but but it's something the community doesn't have, as far as building an indoor and adding that aspect. And so, that's why that got bumped up the ladder a little bit ahead of the arena. So.
And I guess my question this time is, do you see an issue in that with us making a final decision at budget time?
No, I think that gives us time to do our diligence too, and I'll work to kind of come up and work with Jeff and President Griffiths, and then we'll kind of do some work with Jameson and just kind of getting this all put together, and then I think that makes total sense. I'd rather work with you all to get it right than rush it and have the people of Madison ask a lot of questions after the fact. So.
Other questions or comments? And yeah, if that's all right, then I think we'll just move on to new business. And thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Under new business. Hearing upon the application for the sale of alcoholic beverages, CJ Schaefer LLC doing business as 40th Bar and Grill.
How we doing?
All things considered, we're doing well. No storms right now. We're okay with that.
So,
Okay, so we've got the hearing. Is there anyone here other than Cam that wants to speak to his request for a temporary alcohol license for a wedding? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 2. Approve the temporary alcohol license, Sporty's Bar and Grill, for August 13th, 2022 at 904 North Van Epps for a wedding. Is that correct?
yes, that is
Okay.
correct. And I have been in talk quite a bit with Morgan and Brady, the wedding couple, and we're looking right now between 3 PM and 12 AM. Last drink sold at 11:30 and being done. Everyone's out of there by midnight. The amount of people that are attending are between 450 and 600 right now. So 2 big farm families, but there was no other spot in Madison or even the county that would host that many people, so. But we've talked about it while we having 4 bartenders there, making sure. I have did over 25 weddings at Camp Lakota and have not had a single problem, so that's why they wanted to come to me for it. And I mean, for what I'm understanding with all of them, if there's a problem, we'll kick the person out and say, Heath, the father of the bride, has been very vocal about that too. If there's a problem, let him know. And if I see something, and I will be walking around making sure no outside alcohol comes in. So everything's coming from us. So, and we will be carding and using a wristband. So if once someone comes up, we'll give them a wristband. So when they come up again, we know for sure, but in that past, we've did that for weddings out there if we had to, and have had no single problem with anyone doing or having a problem with that, so.
No comments from you?
No comment? Okay. All right, I don't have an issue with it. So, any other comments at all? Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the temporary alcohol license for Sporty's Bar and Grill for August 13th, 2022 at 904 North Van Epps from 3 PM to 12 AM.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Awesome.
Okay,
so
thank you.
much.
Number 3, authorize the mayor to sign change order number 3 with Homey Incorporated on the Madison Water System Improvements Phase 2. Jameson, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This change order for the Phase 2 project is related to several miscellaneous items. I'll go through a couple of them quickly. So they're going to be addressing drainage issues at 4th Street and Summit to the addition of more stormwater infrastructure, some curb and gutter removal and reinstall along 8th Street, and various utility work and service line connections at a couple of locations that weren't included in the design phase. Ryan, anything to add to that? Total amount is $66,000, excuse me, no, $29,378.
The utility work was some conflicts that were encountered during storm sewer installation. DSU, their sump line comes out of the library. Then needed to intersect in the side of the storm sewer pipe that was being installed. And then the sanitary sewer lines were in conflict with that. And so it required them to grade those and add additional pipe installations and connections to the sanitary main. And then the additional curb and gutter on 8th Street was between Summit Avenue and Prairie Avenue. Not all of the curb and gutter was planned to be removed in that location, but upon looking at that as we were doing the project, it was obvious that some of that needed to come out and be replaced. And so we did leave quite a bit of that, but then moved what was absolutely necessary.
One of the things you run into when you're working in construction, especially when it's getting underneath and underground. So, questions or comments?
Sounds like we're trying to do it right versus.
Yeah, I think that's right. The storm sewer at 4th and Summit Avenue, that's always notoriously bad in that intersection. Icy in the wintertime and puddle in the summertime, so we could address that.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign change order number 3, Homey Incorporated Madison Water System Improvement Phase 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying 2.
Aye.
Aye.
2.
Wow, I guess something new. All right. Motion carries. Number 4, update the Madison Water System Improvement Projects. Jameson, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the whole community is aware, we have lots of construction projects that are going on in our community, and this isn't the first year of it. We felt that it was an appropriate time to have Ryan present an update on their progress and what we are expecting moving forward for the rest of the summer. Ryan, take it away.
Okay, so for the water system improvements, there's 4 major projects that are ongoing. I can just go on. So their RD Phase 1A, which is a utility and surfacing project in the northwest part of town. J&J Earthworks is our contractor for that project, and that began in 2020. The second project, RD Phase 1B, is also a J&J Earthworks project in the northwest part of Madison. This kind of gets confused. It's often thought of as a portion of 1A, but it's actually a completely separate project. That one started in 2021. Then we have Phase 2. That project locations in the northeast section of town. And it also includes some work around the wastewater treatment plant as well as a water tower loop line in the industrial park for the new water tower. Holme Incorporated is the contractor for that work. That project, similar to the last, started in 2021. And the last is the aforementioned 750,000 gallon water tower. Caldwell Tanks is the contractor for that work. That work also began in 2021. So getting a little deeper into these, the first project is Phase 1A. That project's 23 blocks of work to an area in the northwest part of the community. The 23 blocks are comprised of Northwest 3rd Street from Catherine to Chicago, Northwest 4th from Kansas to Chicago, Catherine from 2nd to 5th, and all of West Chicago and Liberty Avenues from Northwest 2nd to Northwest 5th Street. Major components of this project, 29,320 square yards of roadway reclamation that were hauled off. That's the milled asphalt surfacing. 8,200 linear feet of water main associated service lines, valves, fire hydrants, 3,600 feet of sanitary sewer, along with associated service lines and manholes. About 29,000 square yards of asphalt surfacing, 14,500 linear feet of curb and gutter, about 17,500 square feet of concrete sidewalk. And then, of course, there's a lot of other components that go into a project like this, like seating and black dirt and traffic control, base course and geotextile fabric and so on. So those are just kind of some of the major components. Some key milestones for this project are shown on this slide. Due to the fact that this project is substantially complete, they shouldn't have any issues at all with finishing this up. It's pretty much done. I'll just note that J&J Earthworks did a pretty good job of staying on schedule with this project. They were able to work quickly and efficiently. So as I said, this project is substantially complete. All underground and utility installations on water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer are done. Curb and gutters complete. The flat work concrete surfacing, such as driveways, is done. And all but one alley approach, and then there's a couple of ADA ramps and some sidewalk to tie in. The next one. So the remainder of the work is those sidewalks and ADA ramps. One alley and then the final grading and seeding of the boulevard area. There's been a lot of landowner coordination on this project, particularly as it pertains to the sidewalk and tying into existing driveways. And then there's been quite a bit of discussion between Banner and my office on last year and this year. And we've elected to try and make some changes to the ADA ramps to make them more compliant. There's a couple that were very, very steep when they tied in. And so doing that, it's involved some deviation from the plans. And so we're working with some of the landowners because we're gonna tie back further onto their property. And these changes, we just strongly believe that these will have a positive end on the final product. So again, this project's on track to finish this year and it went well. Next project is Phase 1B. This project's a 21 block area in the northwest part of town. There were 20 blocks originally, and then that's what that map shows. But we added West Avenue from Northwest 6th to Northwest 7th via change order a couple month or so ago. That was in order to upsize the sanitary sewer system, which provides not only short-term benefits, but long-term benefits as we can better serve the areas to the west. We feel pretty fortunate that this project was awarded the way it was able to be. The different colors on the map signify both the base bid areas, which are the orange area, and the magenta or pink area. And then the alternate sections are the blue and the green, and we were able to award all of those, which allowed us to get a lot more work done. So the streets involved in this project are Northwest Fifth from Catherine to Union, Northwest Sixth from Catherine to Olive, Northwest Seventh, Olive to West, Catherine Avenue from Fifth Street to Sixth Street, Olive Avenue from Fifth to Eighth, West and Chicago Avenues from Eighth to 9th, the intersection of Chicago and 7th Street, Liberty Avenue from 5th to 9th, Union Avenue from 2nd to 5th, and finally the aforementioned West Avenue from Northwest 6th to Northwest 7th Street. Notable improvements on this project, a lot of the numbers are pretty similar. It's a pretty similarly sized project. This one included about 535 feet, I think, of RCP storm sewer, so increased or upgraded our storm sewer in that section of town. 28,000 square yards of asphalt concrete surfacing, about 23,000 square feet of concrete sidewalk. So a lot of work done there. As with the prior 1A project, there's a lot of miscellaneous items that go into these. Key dates for this project are on this slide. This project was intended for certain streets to be done in year 1 and certain streets to be done in year 2. And we had interim substantial completion dates on those. When it was set up, it could have been a different contractor in 1A and 1B. But with J&J Earthworks having both of those contracts, there was some benefit to be had in coordination wise from moving some streets from one year to the next. Substantial completion on the project is October 1st of 2022. That would be substantial completion would mean that those areas are open to traffic. Final completion roughly 6 weeks later on November 15th. We feel pretty good about this and where this project is, and I think it's probably on schedule to hit those dates.
Final sidewalk installation, would that be part of final completion?
Yeah.
It could be substantially complete, to still have some sidewalks.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so grading and seeding and stuff like that could happen later.
Okay.
Some notable achievements for completed work. Underground city infrastructure on North Liberty Avenue in Chicago, and then majority of the underground utilities on Northwest Fifth Street were completed last year, and then we'll button up this year. And they're working most recently on Northwest Avenue. And notable achievements yet to occur would be to complete utilities on Northwest Avenue, Olive Avenue, Northwest 7th Street, Catherine Avenue, Northwest 5th, Northwest 6th, and Union Avenue. And along with that would come the installation of the curb gutter. And then we would have completion of the sidewalks and driveways and asphalt surfacing on all the streets and avenues. And then the installation of the black dirt and the seeding would follow. As I mentioned, we're feeling pretty good about where we're at on this project. A lot of work that remains. We'll go to the next one. Next is phase 2. The scope of this is a 20-block water sanitary sewer, storm sewer and surfacing project. This consists of Northeast 9th Street from Washington Avenue to Prairie, Northeast 8th from Egan to Lee and Summit to Prairie, Northeast 7th Street from Summit to Prairie, Lincoln Avenue from 5th Street to 9th Street, Summit Avenue from 3rd Street to 5th Street, and then on 8th Street to 9th Street. And then finally Prairie Avenue from 3rd Street to 9th Street to round out that 20-block portion. Other work Homey's contracted to do consists of Highway 34 sanitary sewer crossing and the 12-inch water tower loop line. Notable elements on this project are over 13,000 square feet of various size water main, associated service lines, valves, hydrants, and fittings. 1,400 feet of that was water main by directional drill. And there was 933 feet of 18-inch diameter, 185 feet of 12-inch diameter, 398 linear feet of 10-inch diameter, and about 2,000 linear feet of 8-inch sanitary sewer, so major sanitary sewer, right? Similar to the other two projects, about 30,000 square yards of asphalt surfacing roughly, large amounts of concrete curb and gutter and concrete sidewalk, and then surface restoration and miscellaneous work. Key dates for this, that change order tonight, that these dates are correct. The substantial completion of 9th from Washington to Prairie would become August 20th, and 8th Street between Egan and Lee would be August 25th. They don't necessarily need to be paved, although that's the intent, but they need to be open on those days. And if worse comes to worse, then they could pave on the weekend to avoid the school traffic, but the intention is to have those paved. Substantial completion for the project as a whole is October 1st, with final completion of all work 6 weeks later on November 15th. There is concern with this project on the schedule. I do feel it's a few weeks behind, and we'll continue to work with the contractor, and we'll hopefully can make up some ground with better weather and maybe some better luck with some rework that has done in progress significantly. But we are quite concerned about this project finishing on time. Work that has been completed. Underground utility installations on Summit, Lincoln, Northeast 7th, Northeast 8th, and Northeast 9th. Curb and gutter on North Summit, North Lincoln, Northeast 7th, Northeast 8th, and Northeast 9th. And then we have the asphalt surfacing on Summit, Lincoln, at Northeast 7th and Northeast 8th between Summit Avenue and Prairie Avenue. And then the water tower loop line is complete, and the Highway 34 sanitary sewer crossing we did a walkthrough on today. And that's mostly done, just some punch list items to finish on there. Notable work items remaining are underground utility installations on Prairie. Nothing's been done as far as utilities on Prairie yet, from 9th to 3rd Street. So there's quite a bit of utility to do there. It mostly consists of water main. It should go fairly quickly. And then the biggest component, the biggest, thing that's going to take the most time, I guess I would say, is subgrade preparation, base course, and curb and gutter, of course. Completion of driveways and sidewalks are yet to be done on all those streets and avenues. There's still some loose ends to tie up. And then, of course, asphalt surfacing, and then the final grading, seeding, such with that.
Before we go on to the water tower, you had said that there's a possibility that this project isn't going to get completed this year.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk through what that would look like there? What the next?
Sure, yeah, I believe all the utilities will probably be complete. It would just be the roadway that may not be able to be paved. We don't have an updated schedule from the contractor yet. I'd sure like to see that. They still have themselves finishing on time, but kind of like to see after the last month or so where they think they're at. I would say that the greatest possibility is that they won't be able to pave that. May have to do some temporary surfacing similar to what they had to do on Lincoln Avenue a couple of blocks away. So
There was some issues in that with that ground property drying. I noticed today and that they're digging some of that out. So are
Yeah.
they gonna remove that was having difficulty with and then put in some new
and that was
on 9th Street? right
9th
between-
Street. Yeah,
Yeah, Washington going east.
yeah. So I think the subgrade work continues there. They just finished up the utilities, and so I think they're just now mobilizing out there. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, they're working on cutting out the subgrade. and
Yeah,
getting-
I
getting
saw
the
that.
Subgrade elevation. So then they'll start the subgrade preparation and hopefully move into base course.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Very good.
The last project I felt was important to brief you on was the water tower. This project sites in the industrial park, as everyone knows, and I believe everyone's aware of, that the tank received significant damage to it during the storm. There was some wishful thinking initially upon inspection of the tank after the storm, and it was believed that perhaps the contractor could cut the damaged reverse cone and utility rail in the peaked areas to allow the tank to find its shape. They were hopeful that once they cut those welds, that it would round itself out, and then they could replace those damaged from beam sections when they lifted the tank off the ground. Well, when they lifted the tank off the ground and installed the knee braces and looked at that, they reassessed the geometry and they determined that the tank will actually need to be rebuilt. So rather than repair, we're looking at a complete rebuild with difficulty in getting materials quickly. I believe we're realistically looking at this project taking another year. So it was planned to be painted in May of this year. Now we're looking at paint May of next year. This estimated timeline here is my estimate, so it's very subjective, and it's now a lot more than my best guess. That timeline will be able to be pinned down once Caldwell is able to determine if they can get steel and when they can line up their subcontractors to complete that work. Suffice it to say, Caldwell's going to work really hard, and they'll put priority on this project where they can, and so they'll work as late as they can in the winter. And still, as you can see, my best guess is late next year for completion. So it's unfortunate, but
With the derecho, did they think that the tank lifted and dropped?
yeah. So the
Like it
So
looked
the
like it
column
did?
of the concrete column shows that the tank actually went up and it's lying
And
back
did
down.
come back
So-
down. Yeah.
because there was some surface damage to that column. So,
Mhm.
So the bottom line here is because of the storm,
Yes.
obviously
Yeah.
outside everybody's control, it has to be rebuilt. We want to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
My suggestion was, since it's shaped like a taco, just paint it like a taco. But Ryan told me, no, Jameson, that won't work. So we're gonna get a new tank, new tower, and then there's no negative consequences to the city financially.
Right.
It's just time wise, we're pushed back a year, correct?
How about sitting in that state for another year through the winter? Are there any concerns?
so they'll have to take that tank apart and take it down. So everything as it's sitting there, the concrete's okay. I mean, they have got some foundation repair to do, and some of the concrete column repair to do. But that's not something that needs to be removed and replaced. Yeah, I can. It's safe to stay that way, I guess I'd say.
Is it our insurance that is gonna take a claim on this, or is it
No,
theirs?
it's the contractors. So it's not really our water tower until it's turned over to us.
I don't think, from what my count, there's 4 towers that were all under construction within an hour or two of this area that were damaged substantially by the storm. So
Yeah.
not just us either.
Brandon's tower is identical to ours here, but it was
It
up
was in the air.
and it caved in one
Yeah.
side of it. So they've got to bring that whole tower down and start over.
Weather.
No.
No,
So work completed date, the foundation construction is done and the installation of the underground site piping is complete. Concrete pedestal construction is also done. And work remaining, because it should occur, the tank storm repair is the biggest component that remains, but then after that, we've got quite a bit to do. We've got foundation and concrete shaft patching to do. And then after that is the painting of the tank, both at the grade and the air. And then they'll jack the tank up and finish it up there. And then there's quite a bit of work to do on the interior slab and the under slab installations of electric, the subfloor, et cetera. Interior construction of walls and roof and interior paint, doors, electrical and control components, installations, and then site work and fencing. So it seems like once that tank gets up in the air, it's done, but there's a lot of work to do after that. And then I think, just as a final comment, I think these projects have been a remarkable improvement for the city. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the significant roles that former city engineer Jack Gomez and former utility director Brad Lawrence knows. They were instrumental in the planning, the design, the administration, the funding of these. So I just like to say thanks to those guys as well as to Banner Associates as our engineer on these and the fine work they're doing on those. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and then Cedric from Banner's here as well, and he can answer and fill in any gaps that I can.
You can take all the tough questions back there, right?
That's right. That's why he's here.
I guess I would just ask Cedric, is there anything that you would like to add? And if you would, if you'd come up to the, by Ryan, you know, for the benefit of the public, because this is being recorded.
I don't have anything in particular to add. J&J's moving along, making good progress. Starting to see some progress on phase 2 as well. So hopefully with the good weather coming, they'll be able to, you know, move along on the roadway prep. Once that gets caught up, then we can continue utility installation on Prairie. So.
Ryan, how many blocks were in section 1A? Did you say?
23.
Do you know how many total city blocks we have in the city limits? Just out of curiosity.
It's a tough question. All of them.
I don't know.
In miles, I remember that number came up and it was surprising,
Mhm.
you know.
We have 55 lane miles of streets.
Yeah.
That helps give some perspective.
Three phases total in town are 64 blocks as far as total reconstruction and underground utilities.
And the nice thing about the whole project is that we're removing some materials and that have been there for 100 years. We've got great water quality at our water treatment facility. It's nice now to be able to get it to the people's homes.
Gotten rid of a lot of 4-inch main.
And a lot of corroded old cast iron pipe.
Ryan, are there any smaller projects we are gonna be starting in this year wanting to?
Wouldn't call it small, but we're looking at starting that Northwest 9th Street project, going from Chicago out over to Highland Avenue, and then the remainder will be next year. No, we don't have any small projects really on our docket. We're kind of looking at large projects going forward with our SRF funding, and we expect to see a lot more of these type projects happening. So.
And Ryan, at this point, would it be nice to just mention that there may be a short time period that the intersection of Washington and 9th may be closed for a very short time, and that as that intersection is put together?
Yeah, so they've got to get in there and do all that separated work in that intersection. There's some utilities in there. And, it's just gonna, we talked about trying to do it one half of the intersection at a time. It's just not gonna be very efficient. And so we're gonna need to close that intersection for a period of time, and there'll be detour routes and everything that goes around. And we'll work with Public Works Department on that and make sure that notifying people when we can. And you know, it's mainly, I think, for truck traffic going north on Washington Avenue. I think the local folks will find their way around now that we have Summit Avenue open. Street, but yeah, that will be a closure.
Is there an expected closure length?
Um,
Time wise?
I think the contractor was looking at saying like a week.
Yeah, a week to 2 weeks. I don't think they're still working out their schedule with their subcontractor who will be performing the work. And then we're gonna try to limit it to one closure. So it might end up being 2 weeks to allow them to come in, do the subgrade work, install the base course, and then get it paved. That way it's not closed for a week, open for a week, close it again, paved.
Yep, get it all done.
Yep, I think that's the route that Holm is probably gonna want to go with that.
Could have been a lot longer if we had utility in that corner last year.
Yeah, that sure helped.
Yeah, so the reason I bring it up now is to initially let the public know, because it's probably going to be right around that time period when school activities begin, even if it isn't, when school actually starts. And so keeping the public informed gives them an opportunity to plan their routes so that they're not late for school. Okay. Questions, comments?
Thank you for putting that together.
Yes, thank you.
That was very good.
Thank you. Yeah, there isn't any motion required on this one here. So, do we have any public comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. No public comment. Announcements. Next commission meeting will be Monday, August 1st, 5:30 PM. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And then you have